Part of the human experience is experiencing deep loneliness. No one really talks much about this. We all pretend that we're so much happier than we actually are. And every single one of us has this deep longing to be loved and cared for by another human being, specifically in romantic partnership and through friends and family as well. So sometimes you feel deep loneliness when you have an absence of close family, friends, and a romantic partner. But sometimes what hurts even more is being surrounded by all of these individuals and feeling lonelier than you did before when you had none of them. And you can feel very isolated and lonely when it feels like nobody else is sharing this experience that you are. Now, something to keep in mind is that everybody is sharing this experience with you. They just refuse to admit it. We also have to take into account that most relationships nowadays fail. And so you have to ask, are all of these relationships built on values and deeply caring and loving each other to the fullest extent on the most intimate level possible? Or are more of us in relationship and partnerships because it feels better to be with someone else rather than be alone? Reflecting on this, I realized most of the women I've dated in my life I haven't connected with on a deep spiritual level. None of them as individuals were able to provide me with what I need in partnership, which is somebody who loves exploring the in-depths of life, always being curious about new viewpoints and perspectives, and challenging one another and helping each other grow to the next level and loving each other along that process, because I believe that is how we create the most intimate, loving space possible, when you can challenge each other in a loving way and help one another grow. A lot of us in romantic relationships like to view our partner's opposing viewpoints as simply the adversary, and that we're fighting each other and not discussing the idea itself. And that's when you get into screaming arguments and you start getting super upset with each other. It usually leads both partners to feel guilty and shameful because there was no reason for us to raise our voices at each other in the first place over this idea that we're just talking about, or it's a concept that we disagree about, and we view life in a little bit of a different light. So I want to encourage you to open yourself up to your partner's perspective. Not that you have to agree with every single thing that they say, but fully listen to their extent and viewpoint before you start commenting and judging and criticizing them for viewing the world that way. Because if you look a little bit deeper, there's always a reasoning as to why they view it. And if you believe that your viewpoint is so much higher and correct and theirs is so wrong, maybe you're right, but there's a reason as to why they have this wrong viewpoint, or this viewpoint that is not benefiting their life, but it's something they're so comfortable with and they just believe this is the way the world is. If you fully listen to their explanation, you'll be able to discover that most of the time it's based on a past trauma, a bad experience, a bad past partner, horrible relationship with their parents, or shitty people in their life, or an unfortunate situation that happened. And so now, instead of judging your partner, you can look at them and be, oh, I don't agree with the way you view this, but I actually see why you see it this way and why you're having this experience. And then from there, you can help them change their perspective in a loving and caring way without judging them, which I have had a lot of trouble doing in my past. In the work I do, I love to look at the psychology behind everything. And oftentimes when my woman comes to me, she explains something and instantly I'm picking up, oh, well, this means that, and she's making this association because of this reason. And I'm analyzing it to the point that I'm not listening to her anymore. And what does this do? It creates a disconnect between me and her emotionally. And now we're both being standoffish, and I'm going against her and she's going against me because I'm judging her, and then she's getting mad at me for judging her, and then she throws it back at me and brings up something from the past, and it morphs into this unnecessary negative experience, which could have been completely avoided if I actually shut my mouth and listened to her. A lot of us in conversation listen to speak and not fully listen to the extent that we need to. We hear one thing that we don't agree with, or feels a little bit off, or evokes a certain negative emotion within us, and then we start focusing on that. Now we're not listening to the person anymore, and we're thinking about what we're going to say once they stop talking. But guess what? You're not listening to them anymore, so now you're going to argue, and now everything's going to go to shit. And who does that benefit? It benefits nobody. But if you become aware after having these experiences, that's great, and you shouldn't feel shameful for getting mad at your partner a few times, or them getting mad at you, because you guys have grown together and you've had the conversation after the fact of, oh yeah, we shouldn't have yelled at each other, I'm sorry. But what's most important is that you see each other's viewpoints and you see what you did and said wrong. I've seen in my past relationships and a lot of the clients that I work with that there's often a disconnect. One person sees their partner's perspective and apologizes for the way that they acted and what they said. And then there's a disconnect because the other person's apology is not really, I'm sorry because I said this, I'm sorry that you feel this way because I said this. And now you guys can't connect with each other and fully move through the problem because the person doesn't even see why they're apologizing for. They're just saying, I'm sorry to say I'm sorry. Too many of us are saying, I'm sorry and throwing it around. Too many of us are saying, I love you, and you don't even mean it. Not only do your words need to match up with your actions, but your words need power behind them. And this is the thing, your words, when you say them, automatically have power behind them, because if you tell somebody you're sorry, somebody's going to interpret that as, oh my God, they're sorry. But if the action repeats, they weren't actually sorry, right? I've done this plenty of times in my relationships where I do something wrong or I say something in a certain way to my partner and they bring it up to me and I say I'm sorry and then I do it again. It's like, oh my God, I'm unconsciously doing this pattern. And so you need to bring awareness to it. And this is why romantic relationships are beautiful for growth if you both are focused on growth and open to it, because all of your insecurities and your insufficiencies and the things that you're struggling with internally are going to come up. And this is a great opportunity for your partner to notice that in you and say, Brad, I don't really like the way you said this. I think you could do it better. And then what happens from there? Do you get defensive or do you consider what they're saying and say, you know what, maybe I can do that? For most of my relationships, I get very defensive and I start to justify why I did the thing that I did, even if there's a little part of me that's like, yeah, maybe I could have done that better. And then towards the end of my last relationship, I've been embodying the listening a lot more. And so when she would bring up, hey, Brad, I really don't like that you did this, I listened to her. And more often times than not, I would start to look at her and instead of defending myself, I'd say, you know what, baby, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that. You need to hold yourself accountable in your relationship, and your partner is going to help you do that. Unless they're not mature as a human being either, in which in that case, they'll become resentful of all the things that you do to them that they don't like, and they'll never bring it up until the relationship is ending, and then they'll say, I'm breaking up with you because of these 10 reasons, and then you'll be like, well, I mean, I would have wanted to improve on this if you brought it up to me, but too late, they didn't do it. So on your side of things, the second that your partner does something that you do not like, you bring it up to them. You say, hey baby, I'm not really comfortable with you doing this. I don't really like the way you worded that. You're giving them an opportunity to grow, and they're doing that for you as well. It's up to you whether you take that opportunity. You can throw it right back in their face and start to get angry and justify it. Most of us were never taught how to be in a healthy relationship, so for most of my life, I had no idea how to do this. As human beings, we like to think that we're right and all of our opinions are justified, which in part they are because of our past experiences. But sometimes you need to correct your behavior, and sometimes you need to understand when you have a faulty viewpoint so that you can grow in the relationship as an individual with your partner, and you don't sabotage the relationship just because you have a stupid opinion and you can't admit that you're wrong. Relationships are growth oriented only when you want them to be. If they're not, then you're self-sabotaging your relationship and it will end sooner or later, or it will never end and you guys will suffer together forever. Most relationships fail, most people get divorced. It's because nobody has any values that they stand on. People do not talk about, we want our relationship to be built on this. We're going to bring this up to each other. When we don't like that, we do this. Nobody talks about that. You don't tell your partner what you want from them, what you need from them, what your desires are, and then your needs, desires, and wants are not met, and then you have an outburst on your partner because your needs aren't being met, yet you never told them that those needs weren't being met. So whose fault is it? Not theirs, yours. All of these things will continually be thrown back in your face, and it'll be a horrific experience for both of you. So if I can leave you with anything, be more conscious in your relationships. Ask your partner what they desire, what they need, what they want from you, and tell your partner what you desire from them. And from there, you'll see if you're actually compatible or you're just using each other to feel less lonely. Most of my past relationships were not built on aligned values. They were aligned on, we kind of like each other, so let's share this experience. And those relationships have a place in your life at certain points. But a relationship like that can never last long term because the foundation of it is built on what? Nothing. Most people's foundations for their relationships are, we feel a little bit less lonely being together, we kind of like each other, but we don't love each other, although we say we love each other. Because true intimate love is loving every single part of them, and if you don't love every single part of your partner, you don't fully love them, you only love a version of them. Make sure when you enter a romantic relationship that your desire for growth, deep love, and connection is greater than your feeling of just filling the void of loneliness. I hope this was helpful for you guys. If you're a young man focused on self-development, improving your relationships, advancing spiritually, I run a group community where we hop on a few group calls each week, learn new knowledge together, hold each other accountable, set goals, grow in every area of life. If that piques your interest at all, check out the link in the description. I'll catch you guys in the next one.